So, if that's the end of the formal bit of business, let me just take a little while to share some stuff about looking backwards over the last 6 months particularly, and then about where we are at the moment, and then looking forwards as far as we can in the current circumstances. So let me just start off with a little bit of a review of the last 7 months. And of course, it's been the most extraordinary 7 months that many of us have ever lived through. They've been hard on all of us in so many different ways. There have been those who have been bereaved and unable to go to funeral services or unable even to have hugs from those who want to comfort them. There's been children and young people unable to see their friends. There's been those living by themselves who felt an increased sense of isolation and loneliness. Those who aren't online, similarly, an increased sense of alienation. Some have lost their jobs, others have been furloughed for months and months. Then there's the frontline workers who've been putting their lives at risk, particularly in the midst of that first peak. There are those who've been trying to work from home whilst trying to homeschool at the same time. Those laid up in bed for months with long COVID. There's those who've had to cancel long cherished holidays and celebrations and so on. The truth is we've all found it hard. And of course, it's been hard in church life as well. I'm aware that some of us have almost felt bereaved as our own ministry in church has been put on pause. So the ARC and Superstars and Beacon Meals and junior church leaders and some of the musicians and welcomers and prayer ministry team and so on haven't been able to do what they would normally want to offer as an act of worship to the Lord. And others have had to adapt very, very quickly. Actually, all of our cell groups have switched to meeting online. It's been so encouraging hearing about elderberries making DVDs and home delivering meals to homes for Luncheon Club, as well as keeping in touch with care homes and our own older people. The youth team have quickly adapted to doing youth work online. Rich came up with some really innovative ways of reaching out to the young people during lockdown and has now pioneered a new way to help welcome them back into the building. The Superstars team have transitioned to doing some online videos. We formed 2 whole new tech teams, one to help with streaming, one to help with video production. Our music bands have had to learn whole new ways of leading us in worship. Our service leaders and preachers have had to learn new presentation skills. We've started a new band. So much has changed. And in other words, some people have found church life and ministry much quieter than normal. Others have found it much busier than normal. And I'm reminded of those words in the Methodist covenant prayer, which starts like this. It says, I'm no longer my own, but yours. Put me to what you will. Rank me with whom you will. Put me to doing. Put me to suffering. Let me be employed for you or laid aside for you, exalted for you or brought low for you. And so whether you're part of the congregation who feels that your offering of worship to the Lord has been put on hold, or whether your offering of worship to the Lord has been sort of multiplied, I would encourage you all to see it as an act of offering and worship. And it's the Lord who knows whether we're going to get busier or quieter. But if we're genuinely serving him, then actually we shouldn't mind whether it is busier or quieter. Most of us, of course, have had to get used to joining in church from our home. Some of us haven't been able to do that if we're not online. Some of us have had to get used to returning to church, but doing so with masks and no singing and so on. So it's been hard on everyone, hard on all of us. And I just want to thank all of you for your patience, your perseverance, your faithfulness in bearing with us through these times. And at the risk of forgetting someone, I do want to highlight a few people who I think deserve particular mention this year for the sheer amount of unexpected work they've had to do. And the first is actually the safeguarding team, Rosie and Josh and Lena, now joined by Suzanne. And they've had to encounter so many scenarios which have needed really careful thought. And they have probably saved me several times by rightly applying the brakes to some of what we've tried to do. They've had a huge amount of work. I want to pay a particular credit to Catherine Humphrey, who didn't take a week off in months and months at the beginning of lockdown as she helped prepare the stuff for the screens for every Sunday service. I want to pay particular tribute to Sam Taylor, who has been our tech supremo through all of this. And many evenings has been up a ladder or crawling under the floorboards in the church building, fiddling with computers, trying to get things set up for us. There was one wedding where I had to phone him just before the wedding started, and he was on a beach, and he still managed to sort us out and rescue us from the beach. I want to pay particular tribute to Chris Taylor as well, who's done a huge amount of coordinating and giving extra help and support to the various bands and to the different tech teams. A huge amount of work he's done. And lastly, to mention the health and hygiene team, which is Simon Clift and Tara Watson. Jane Crispin was part of that, has now stepped down and been replaced by Rachel Silver. Again, a huge amount of work and email traffic. And we wouldn't have been able to do any single physical meetup in church or the parish hall or cell group or on a Sunday or any other meetings that we've had without them. And they've got lots of work to come over these next few months as well. And I suppose I also want to pay particular credit to the staff. As with every workplace, it's been difficult. And so in no particular order, Teresa has kept things ticking along despite being quite isolated in the office. Lena as associate minister and Katie as pastoral chaplain have done a huge amount of pastoral work, and that they both do it in their own time is a huge gift to us as a church. Josh has shouldered extra responsibilities over these last 6 or 7 months without any complaining, and whilst enduring the delay of his own wedding. Rich managed to squeeze in some wonderfully faithful work where he could, whilst looking after his kids during lockdown. And he provided the on-screen highlight of lockdown when he set fire to some paper in the all-age service, or at least it was the on-screen highlight to rival what my boys were doing earlier on in lockdown. And Georgia has managed to finish her ordination training and has at last got ordained, so is now officially our curate. I can see some people cheering away in the background there. All she could think of apparently when she was being ordained, as Bishop Tim laid hands on her head, was how much his hands smelt of hand sanitizer. But anyway, she is ordained and she is curate. And again, her gift to us as a church and as a community of her time is invaluable. So great to have Georgia as part of the team. And also just to mention, since the last APCM, I had a sabbatical. I know it seems a very long time ago now, but just to give particular thanks again to the wardens and the staff team for leading the church through that time, and to Lena in particular for that. Again, that was a massive gift to me. So thank you for that. But as we're reflecting back, let me just highlight two other topics which you might not expect me to mention, which are much wider than our church. And the first is the Black Lives Matter movement, which has been so significant in the past 6 months. And I feel bad that we haven't addressed this more publicly as a church yet, but I'm determined we will do so in due course. I've listened to many people and read many accounts and stories which have highlighted to me just how unwittingly complicit I have been, and I feel we have been as a church, in letting systemic racism invade what we do. Since John Sentamu retired as Archbishop of York, none of the Church of England's diocesan bishops have a BAME background, and only 3 of the suffragan bishops do. And that is quite frankly appalling. But I'm not sure that our local record is much better. God didn't invent race. Race is a human construct. And I have much to learn, and I suspect we all as a church have much to learn about how we can be a truly inclusive church where we can appreciate fully the diversity of humanity that God has created, with each and every person reflecting something of the image of God in them. And I want you to hold me accountable in making sure that we address this crucial issue more fully over these coming months. And the other wider issue that I wanted to mention, that's been in the news again just last week, is around child abuse and safeguarding. Some of you will have spotted that the Independent Inquiry into Child Sexual Abuse was published its report into the Church of England last week. And we have a shameful history as a national church, where we have often worked harder to protect abusers than we have to care for the abused and to protect the innocent. I know it's very easy to hear the word safeguarding and groan inwardly. It implies mountains of paperwork and hours of training and masses of hoops to jump through. And some might say, but you know, we never had to do this 20 years ago. But tragically, the fruit of us not doing all this 20 years ago or 40 years ago or whenever is far too many broken and scarred lives. So if safeguarding seems like too much hard work and you're tempted to shy away from it, let me remind you that we simply cannot work with any children or young people or vulnerable adults, for each of whom Christ died and each of whom need to hear about Christ's love, without observing all the safeguarding procedures. Safeguarding is not the responsibility of the vicar or the PCC or the safeguarding team alone, although all of those people have a specific and legal role. Safeguarding is the responsibility of everyone in the church life. And when we have such a shameful history nationally, it's up to everyone to be willing to blow the whistle or to question motives and to hold us to account. Sometimes gospel ministry involves making meals. Sometimes gospel ministry involves sharing our faith. Sometimes gospel ministry involves praying. Sometimes gospel ministry means attending safeguarding training. They are all equally vital if we are to share the good news of Jesus Christ with every person in our local community. Now, I'm aware that those two subjects that I've shared, the Black Lives Matter and safeguarding, they're quite heavy topics. And for some of you, they are extremely personal. So please do feel free to talk to me or to Katie or Lena afterwards if you'd like to, or to get in touch with us over the coming days. So that's something about looking back. Let me now say a few things about where we are at the moment as a church. And in a moment, I'm going to bring in Paul Lambert, because I announced a few weeks ago that Paul will be starting at the beginning of November as our assistant leader. I'm really looking forward to working with Paul, having him as part of the staff team on a part-time basis. The idea is that he will help to lift some of the weight of management responsibility from my shoulders and help cover that. Because it became apparent to me, probably long after it became apparent to other people, that I couldn't continue to hold so much on my plate, and we wouldn't be able to move forward as a church as much as we would like to without some additional help. So Paul's going to be working mainly behind the scenes. It'll be a learning curve for me and for him in working out exactly how this job is going to work out. But I think it will make a real difference to me and to all of us. And so as Paul is still relatively new to our church, I thought it'd be nice to hear a little bit from him this evening. So Paul, can you unmute yourself and just introduce yourself for a couple of minutes? Tell us about your family and your faith journey and that sort of thing.
Yep. So hi everybody. So my name's Paul, as Dan's introduced, and this is my wife Jen, who many of you will recognise. Jen often doesn't seem to be able to go down Shirley High Street without seeing loads of people that she knows, which is great, from different toddler groups and bits. We've lived in Shirley for about 15 years now, and throughout that time we've now have two children called JJ and Emma, and they're sort of 10 and 12 at the moment. So JJ's just started secondary, and Emma is been in her year 8 in secondary at St Anne's. So that's kind of where we are at the moment. Very quick church or faith journey is I was brought up in a Christian family, and I've been, as a young child, I was involved in the Methodist Church. I moved into Anglican Church to join my sister. Had a better youth group during my youth ages, and then at university I kind of ducked out a bit from church, but got involved in a group called the Navigators, which are a great organisation that work alongside students, and a great guy there discipled and mentored me. And then we got involved in Highfield Church for a bit, and then Jen and I got married at Highfield, which was great. And then Jen was a teacher at the time, and so we sort of left Highfield from that Anglican perspective and moved over to an independent church that was a church plant from above bar, and that was around being the language at the time was a seeker friendly, but it was a church that kind of was cafe type style, and was kind of worked in a way to try and have talks that were topic based, that would engage people that weren't necessarily comfortable in just coming into a traditional church setting. So we were there for a while, and then we moved to Shirley Baptist Church, and were there for about 4 or 5 years, helping work and set up a sort of an all-age link group. We called it link group, but it was like an all-age home group, which was great fun, and a lot of laughs in that. So that's, and then we've now moved over to St James's by the Park, and so we've been around for almost coming up to a year, really, in January. So it's been a great year. It's been a roller coaster year to sort of get to know people. So I feel the people that I know are still quite limited, but hopefully over the year ahead, I'll have an opportunity to get to know more of you as I go. I'm really excited and looking forward to the opportunity, actually. And it's been hard, actually, the last couple of months waiting for the job, and it feels even harder now. I've only got 2 more weeks. So please pray for Dan. No, but also pray for me, that I continue to make use of the last 2 weeks in my current job, where I lead a small team within Hampshire County Council in their IT department, and as I shift to working with Dan as we discern and work out how we take the role forward. So really looking forward to it. So hopefully I'll get to know you all much more very soon.
Great, thank you, Paul. And yeah, really looking forward to working with you too. And I've just seen, before I move on to the next thing, so on the chat, someone has asked, can I say something about the current status about the reordering of the church and or the hall? So yep, sorry, I should have mentioned that earlier. With the hall, we put in an outline planning application just to see how much the City Council might be willing for us to sort of increase the height of the hall and so on. And they came back and, you know, they had some objections and so on, which is fully what we expected and actually what we wanted in some ways, because now it gives us a better feel for what sort of thing they would accept. So at some point in the future, we'll be able to do that if we want to. And on the St James's, we haven't made a huge amount of progress. We're just about to start appointing some architects to look with us at reordering the inside of St James's, and potentially to do something with the parish hall as well when lockdown started. And that sort of put a bit of a halt on everything. And over the last couple of months, there's been quite a lot of work to do with trying to finalise the sale of St John's. So not a huge amount of progress on the parish hall or St James's to see yet, but there has been some work going on behind the scenes. Okay, let me say a few more things about where we are as a church now at the moment. And I know that our 10 o'clock service doesn't quite hit the mark for anyone, but I hope that parts of the service hit the mark for most people in the congregation at some point. And it feels to me as a church as though we're trying to hold several things in tension in those services. So we're trying to have some of the balance, if you like, between a 9 a.m. style of worship and a 10:30 a.m. Style of worship. Both have a richness which the other can benefit from. We're also trying to balance the needs of those who are unable or unwilling to come out of their homes to worship with the needs of those who cannot join in with online worship or just find it doesn't work for them. So we're trying to balance those needs by having some in the building and some from home. And we're trying to balance the needs of those who've been part of the church for years with those who've only joined the church very recently, since lockdown started. And inevitably, people's experiences of online church have been very varied, and the experience of church back in the building have been varied. Some have really struggled, some have really appreciated them. But it seems to me important that we try to journey through this time together as much as possible. So for the next few months, we're going to have a pattern where we stream services live from the church building on the 1st and 3rd and 5th Sundays of the month, and we have services streamed from home on the 2nd and 4th Sundays of the month. I'm delighted to say we can now have any age of child back into the church building, having had to exclude most children for the last 6 months. And our tech teams are working very hard to try to get the experience of live stream services from the building better for those who are joining in from home, because we know it's not great yet, but we are making progress. And thank you for your patience as we work through the myriad tech challenges there. And I know that, we all get frustrated with different elements of our church services or small group meetings at the moment. Some get frustrated at not being able to sing our worship in the same way. Some get frustrated by the technology or the production quality. Some get frustrated by not having deeper Bible teaching. Some get frustrated by not being able to see each other and talk freely afterwards. And with each of those frustrations, I suspect that the Lord is gently probing our hearts and pointing out sometimes unhelpful attitudes that are lurking in there. And so whenever we have these frustrations, I think it's worth just asking the Lord, what is it you're trying to teach us through this? Maybe he's trying to remind us of his sovereignty. Maybe he's trying to teach us patience. Is he reminding us that true worship is about the heart? Is he reminding us that worship services aren't primarily about what I want or for what you want for that matter, but are about glorifying him and are about us together? So there's, as we live through these struggles, let's be asking the Lord, what is it you're trying to teach us through this? Now, I don't want to go on very much longer at all. I'm soon going to hand over to Thrive. But I'm aware that, I just want to say something about the future quickly. The immediate future, I'm very aware that as economic hardship increases and the nights draw in and lockdown increases, mental health declines, stress levels at home and at work generally rise. The devil would love to exploit all of that by making us more stressy with each other. Add to that the difficulty of being able to not being able to see each other face to face, making communication harder. And add into that mix that this is a very significant term for us spiritually as a church, as we learn to listen to God more carefully. And so with all of that together, we could become sitting ducks for the devil, who is described in 1 Peter 5 as a prowling lion, prowling around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. And in those circumstances, Peter urges us to be alert and to resist him, standing firm in the faith. And so through all the stresses, I would encourage us to keep short accounts with each other, to bear with each other in love over these coming months. I've been so encouraged to see that happening recently. And in many ways, it's when life becomes harder that faith becomes more real. When life becomes more of a struggle for us, that we really learn what it is to love one another and bear with each other in love. So this is going to be an opportunity for us to do that. And it's when the darkness around us deepens that the light of Jesus will be most visible and shine most clearly. So that's the immediate future. How about Christmas, which seems to be the distant 2 months away? Obviously, Christmas this year is going to look and feel very different for us as a church as well as for families. We are working together with other churches in Shirley to put together a joint sort of Christmas project in place of carol services. It's going to link into work in local schools and hopefully care homes as well. I hope it will be more creative than normal. I hope it will be something that we can all join in from our homes and share with friends and neighbours. And we're toying with the idea of doing some sort of Christmas walkthrough in the building, to which you can come and other members of the community can come to engage with the Christmas message. And if you'd like to be part of dreaming those up or putting those together, do let me know. But it seems to me, this is a year that people have been spiritually more open than ever before. And Christmas is a time of year when people are more open to invitations to church things than at any other time of year. So our community needs the gospel now more than ever. And I really hope that you will take opportunities that Christmas brings to share the good news of Jesus with others. Hopefully it will go into homes and hearts it has never previously been into. And then to look still further into the future, well, of course, that's the great unknown at the moment, isn't it? Obviously, we're in the season of listening at the moment. I explained a little bit yesterday about how we can all feed into that and what it is that we're hearing from God. I've got no idea what shape our church will be in the future, but I do know that the longer that the restrictions are in place, the more will change permanently. One church leader wrote recently, the church which comes out of lockdown will, I think, be digitally promising, physically smaller, more financially precarious and tentative, and potentially more flexible and interesting. I think that's probably a pretty fair summary of what we're heading towards. And when will we know what the future looks like? Well, we've set aside this term for listening, but God often doesn't work to our timescales. So it may be that we get some general pointers by the end of this term, but it could take months to work out what that is going to look like in practice. And I know it's unsettling for us to live through so much change, but what we can hold on to is the fact that Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. And with faith in him, we can face the future, whatever the future looks like. And however our church and our world changes, we're still going to be called to go deeper with God, to grow closer together, and to reach further with the gospel. And may God give us the courage and the creativity to do those things well. Amen.